Hey guys, welcome back to another episode of the Jay Speak Down podcast. I'm your host Jaden, and today we're going to be talking about NFL teams with the most approved going into the 2024 season. These are teams that are under a lot of pressure, um, more so that they have got to take that step. Playoffs, they got to get to the playoffs, they got to win the playoffs. These are just a couple of teams I had in mind I want to share on the podcast today. Before we get started, make sure y'all hit that subscribe button in the right corner of your screen. Please help us continue to grow the channel out, continue to grow it, and we're continuing to try to provide more content for you guys. See, this the thing about being in this business, in the sports coverage business, and all that type of stuff. It's like during the off season, football wise, because NBA, you got the finals going on, right? Baseball is going on as well, but I cover football, particularly the sorry about that, particularly the NFL. And right, these are kind of the dog days of the NFL and college football, really. I mean, at least we're hearing more NFL news than college. But so these are dog days right now in the National Football League, as far as besides mini camp and things like that, which we'll talk about here in a second, but a little bit. It's just not much going on because we're waiting for the season to start. Training camp has begun. Teams are out there practicing, getting after it, getting ready for the 24 season. So, but speaking of which, yeah, let's get started. So my first team up on the list is the New York Jets. Now, of course, Aaron Rodgers got hurt last year. We all know that, and the quarterback play was just continuously atrocious for New York. Whoever they threw out there, whether it was Zach Wilson or, um, I don't even remember the other quarterback's name. But whoever they threw out there was not is not pretty. And they need Aaron Rodgers out there. He's got to be out there. He's got to be healthy. Recently he's not. I just heard the news that today. The news today came out that he's not really at OTAs right now. But Robert Saleh reportedly said that he's not worried about it. There's no rift going on between the Jets and Aaron Rodgers or what. It's just one thing with Aaron Rodgers. Like, why, like when he was in Green Bay. I mean, you hear about this like you didn't really hear much about this going on as far as like him just not like it wasn't as glorified as it is being in New York, as he was in Green Bay for all those years. Him taking his time away from the team or whatnot or doing whatever. I will say is this, the guy's a Hall of Famer. He's got a Super Bowl, like what 5-time MVP. Um, so um, he's got to take this team to that next level, to that next step. And that's what they brought him there for. Um, so we'll see how it goes. I mean, but the Jets, the defense is great. They just traded for Hassan Reddick, who's most likely looking for an extension, and they need to capitalize. Garrett Wilson, I mean, great offensive player, great receiver. He's up there in top 10 right now, at least to me, in receivers right now. Um, maybe top 15. I mean, you got guys out there. Brees Hall will be back from injury. He's, hopefully he'll stay healthy. I mean, this is a solid team. The Jets right now have a team to go to go and compete in the postseason. So they need to go and do it. Aaron Rodgers has got to be there, be healthy, play like we know he can play, and this team has got to go there. Robert Saleh and his coaching staff have got to put them in the best position coaching wise. There was moments last year where I questioned the coaching decisions that some of the Jets were making. Nathaniel Hackett, offensively, again, coaching decisions, play calls, things like that. The Jets have got to get it right, because they're under pressure right now. Aaron Rodgers is healthy. There's no excuse for this team. They're going to have their star quarterback out there. They got to make the playoffs. Up next on my list is the Jacksonville Jaguars. Now, this is a team, you know, they made the playoffs a couple. What was it? Couple years ago, 2 years ago, 2 years ago. They came back from down 27-0 against the Chargers at home. Then they come back and beat them. They go on the road to play Kansas City at Arrowhead, and they lost. They last year kind of just not up and down, not really their best year. Trevor Lawrence had some shaky games. I still believe that he is a great football player. Now, was he probably worth the number one overall pick at the time? I mean, yeah, you would think, but now it's like he he probably could have slid down a little bit in that draft. I mean, I don't think Zach Wilson was definitely not a number 2 overall pick. He was just he had a cannon for an arm, and was decent at BYU, but he deserved to be the number 2 overall pick in that draft. But I don't deserve. I mean, I'm sorry, I don't know who deserved to be the number 1 either. But Trevor Lawrence was, um, and or no, I'm sorry. He was in the previous draft. My bad. I got that wrong. Um, but anyway, my point is, regardless of the fact, regardless of whichever year he went, Trevor Lawrence last year just not the best year for him specifically. Not what I expected out of him and the Jaguars. They just were, I guess you could say mid. I don't like saying mid. I don't like that word, but I mean that's kind of what they were. They weren't horrible. They just like he's got to. Trevor Lawrence, 21 touchdowns, 14 picks last year, 4,016 yards, 88.5 rating. Got to be better than that. If they want to win, he's got to be much better than that. You know, and they bring in Gabe Davis from Buffalo out of free agency to sign him to that big deal to give him some help with the receiver position. Of course, they lost Calvin Ridley to the Titans in free agency, so they're hoping that they can get some more production from their receiving room. I just he's got to Trevor Lawrence has got to take that next step for this team because they have a good defense. Trevon Walker, I expect to make a big step next year as far as his progression. Andre Cisco and some of the guys in the secondary. Like they've got some solid players. So next step for the Jaguars is got to make the playoffs. You got to win in the playoffs. I know it's hard to do in the AFC, especially in the AFC South now that the Texans are good, and the Colts who knows can even sneak in there in the playoffs. Not worried about the Titans, but I mean, so yeah, we'll see what happens. But yeah, they're definitely team number two. Next team up for me on teams that are under the most pressure in going into 2024. It's the Cincinnati Bengals, right? Same kind of deal with the New York Jets. Like you're gonna have your star quarterback back. Joe Burrow got hurt last year. He missed a lot of time. Jake Browning filled in for him, but the Bengals, and right now Jamar Chase does not have a contract extension. T. Higgins does not have a contract extension. I'm assuming that T. Higgins is going to play out on this franchise tag. He's showing up to practice and stuff, so we'll see if that holds up. But you know, um, you know, the Bengals, like, there's no excuse. They got to make it back. They have their quarterback now. They got their guy, so it's really no reason why they shouldn't be in the postseason this year. Defensively, they got some. You lost Hendrickson, but you still got some solid pieces there. Von Bell came back after spending some time away in the NFC South. So I expect big things from the Bengals. I expect them to at least be at the very least the divisional. At the divisional round, maybe conference championship game. I mean, who knows? It's just so many moving parts. Like the AFC is so loaded with teams. It's hard to predict who can fall where and which team is going to go where. I mean, like I said, look at the Texans. They made it to the divisional round last year. The Colts could even, like I said, sneak in there. I mean, you got, of course, your heavyweights, the Chiefs, the Bengals, the Ravens. You know, but there's also some other sneaky teams. Who even knows? Like the Jets, right? Saying to Miami, but not really. So yeah, and then but which leads me to my next team actually, which is the Miami Dolphins, right? This is a team Tua Tagovailoa, their starting quarterback. He's got new hair and everything, and all that kind of stuff. So I'm expecting him to have a bounce back year. I mean, he had a great year last year. He led the league in passing yards, believe it or not. But the knock on him was like his arm isn't strong and all that type of stuff. Like just a lot of things surrounding the Dolphins. They let Xavier Howard go. So I mean, this they have got to the Dolphins kind of in this limbo phase right now. It's like they're good, but they could be better. Mike McDaniel's a great coach. I've seen it. When they have everybody healthy, when Tyreek, Jalen, and now they got Odell down there. Like so, when those guys are healthy, like that's a lethal receiving core. Um, so they and now of course Devon A. Chain, the rookie running back last year, who I expect to have more success this upcoming season, right? So Dolphins are another team for me on that list that have got to improve, or that are under a lot of pressure going into the 2024 season for sure. They're under a lot of pressure right now, and they got to make it. So yeah, and Last on my list for me, last team on my list is the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, uh, the Eagles are a team. They are interesting because they had a went to Super Bowl a couple years ago, lost against the Chiefs, of course, as we all know. Last year was very up and down. Like defense looked very bad in some games. I mean, Jalen Hurts did not look his best in certain games. Also, offensively, they look kind of out of whack at times. So they've let go of their offensive coordinators, defensive coordinator. Brought in Kellen Moore from Dallas and Vic Fangio to be a defensive coordinator, also coming from Miami. So they're trying to shore up their staff, trying to change some things around scheme wise. So I'm interested to see, especially like some of those young corners, see how they step up. Quinyon Mitchell from Toledo, I hope to see a lot of him this year. I think he's going to play some meaningful snaps. You know, as well. I hopefully hope to see him play some meaningful snaps. For John, also, I don't believe James Bradbury will. If anything, he might be playing safety. From what I heard, like some weeks ago, he was repping at safety during camp. So we may see him at safety. I don't know how that's going to work out, but we'll see. But offensively, Jalen Hurts has got to get back on his lick. He's got to get back to where he's, that Pro Bowl quarterback, that all caliber player that we know he can be. He's got to get back there. He's got to be consistent in the passing game. He can do with his legs. So the Eagles have got to find a way to use him, and make the offense to where he's able to run it efficiently, understand the concepts and things like that. So hopefully Kellen Moore can work with him on that. But yeah, to me, they're under a lot of pressure going into this season because if they don't win this year, if they don't make the you know conference championship game at most, like I don't know, man, like it could be some moving parts on that team. I mean, because you got AJ Brown who's kind of getting up there in age as well. You just signed Devontae Smith to that extension, so he's young, but I mean, they've got some players getting up there that are looking to, want to win a Super Bowl. So they got to put themselves in the best position to do that. So that's my list for the top teams under most pressure going into the 2024 season. Let me know what you guys think in the comments. Do you agree? Is there a team that I didn't mention that you think could be on this list? Let me know. Make sure you hit that subscribe button in the right corner of your screen. Check us out on your YouTube and also on all audio podcast platforms, that being Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, Spotify. Follow us there. Turn on post notifications to let you know when we post an episode, and we'll see you next time.